Good evening, and welcome to Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas' telephone town hall meeting. This telephone town hall is like a traditional town hall meeting. It gives you a chance to hear from Congresswoman Tsongas about issues before Congress or anything that's on your mind, but from the convenience of your own home. In just a moment, Congresswoman Tsongas will give a few brief opening remarks. Then anyone on the call will have an opportunity to ask her your questions. If you'd like to ask a question at any point during the call, simply press *3 on your phone. Since we do anticipate that many people on the call will have questions, after pressing *3, you'll be connected with a member of the Congresswoman's staff who will take down some of your information so that we can connect you with the Congresswoman in turn. We will try to get to as many questions as possible during the course of the next hour, and to do so, we unfortunately won't have time for follow-up questions. So please try to ask your full question when you come on the line with the Congresswoman. One quick technical issue that I want to point out before we get going is that there is sometimes a little bit of lag time in between questions. So please stay with us if there's a brief pause in the discussion as we move on to the next question. As I said, we will try to get to as many questions as we can during this telephone town hall, but if we are unable to get to your question this evening, you will still have the opportunity to ask your question, to leave it as a voicemail for the Congresswoman. And to do so, please stay on the line at the end of the call, and you'll be able to leave a message with your question, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So again, if you would like to ask Congresswoman Tsongas a question at any time during the call, please press *3. So if you would like to ask a question, press *3 on your phone now. And with that, I will turn it over to Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us. The Teletown Hall gives me a great opportunity to connect with you through a virtual town hall. Allows me to speak with all of you from the comfort of your own homes, particularly important given the frigid weather we've been experiencing. So I hope everyone is weathering this historic winter, staying warm, and we all know spring is coming. Just to let you know that my office is working hard with the rest of the Massachusetts delegation, all the other members from Massachusetts, to look at ways that the federal government can support local communities as we deal with this historic snowfall and bitter cold. My office will continue to let you know of any developments, and please contact my office with specific questions should you have them. In the meantime, I hope you will stay safe and stay warm. I know there are many issues on people's minds on a whole range of topics. I will try to answer as many questions as possible during the next hour. So again, to ask me a question or give your input at any point, just press *3 on your telephone. The 114th Congress, which I'm honored to serve in again this year, began last month. And as we've already seen, it's going to take cooperation and compromise to enact serious legislation that addresses important issues. Issues like job growth, how we reform our tax code, the issue of comprehensive immigration reform that we've been grappling with all too long. All of these issues are key to our country's prosperity. I think Congress needs to stay focused on the challenges that are instrumental to help improving the lives of Americans' middle-class families. And to me, that means tackling issues such as affordable child care, equal pay for equal work, access to health care, raising the minimum wage, in which Massachusetts has already taken a leadership role, providing earned sick leave, how we control the cost of college education, and much more. These are issues that are important to families and to women. The 114th Congress includes 101 women legislators. It's a record number. And as history has shown, when more women are involved in the process of change, more of the issues that affect women and families as a whole are addressed. But it's going to take an effort on the part of both parties and all members to reach across the aisle and find common ground from which to build legislation that makes sense for the American people. I recently sent out a survey via my electronic newsletter, and in it was the question, quote, how important is it to you that both parties in Congress work together in a bipartisan way to find compromise solutions to the major issues facing our nation, unquote. More than 80% of the people that responded said that it is very important to them that both parties in Congress work together in a bipartisan way. The American people want to see progress, and they want to see Congress get rid of the partisan theatrics and find a way forward. And it's a message that I take very seriously. As a reminder, to ask me a question or give your input at any point, just press *3 on your telephone. One of the ways we can boost our economy and jobs is to support a Make It in America agenda, focused on creating the best conditions for American businesses to manufacture, to innovate, and to create jobs right here in the United States. To do that, we must invest in high-tech manufacturing, innovation, and infrastructure while cutting red tape to help businesses grow. Many companies here in Massachusetts have incredible job-creating potential in myriad industries, from clean energy to medical technology. And here in the 3rd District, we have seen substantial growth in high-tech manufacturing and innovative technology, and I see it. I visit many companies when I'm back in the district, and over again, I am so awed by the kind of work and the kind of advanced manufacturing that has taken place. But for too long, multinational corporations have fueled the idea that we don't need to make things here in America anymore, that we can invent things here, but let our global competitors make them overseas. And in many instances, that idea ignores the very real dangers to our economy and our well-being of simply ceding manufacturing to other countries. Slowly, though, the appreciation for American manufacturing's role in our economic recovery has begun to be more broadly recognized. And I think we need to build on this renewed awareness by supporting the manufacturing base that is thriving here and help soften the conditions that lead to jobs lost through technological innovation and offshoring. In the House of Representatives, I've supported a series of legislative proposals entitled the Make It in America Agenda, which take exactly the kind of common sense steps needed to do that. And signs of progress are popping up in our backyard. Last year, the Department of Defense announced that they would close a loophole in their policy that would boost domestic footwear manufacturers, ensuring new recruits wear American-made athletic shoes. As it is, our new recruits wear everything else American-made, but an exception was created for the athletic shoes of new recruits. I've been working for several years to bring about this change, and am proud to see local companies like New Balance get the opportunity to produce a 100% American-made shoe for our nation's service members. Again, to ask me a question or give your input at any point, just press *3 on your telephone. In order for our economy to continue on the upswing, we must continue to make sure people are getting back to work and that high-quality and high-paying jobs remain here in our hometowns. But that also means Americans have to have the skills necessary to secure those jobs. That will take an investment in education from early childhood to preschool to more affordable colleges to job training that gives workers the skills they need to compete. Community colleges are uniquely positioned to prepare students for the demands of our modern economy. I had the great good fortune to work for a community college, Middlesex Community College, for 9 years, and I saw firsthand the great creative public-private partnerships that they invest in that lead to updated facilities, hands-on internships, job placement programs, and enhanced academic opportunities. So as our country continues to invest in new sectors of domestic manufacturing and works to regain its competitive edge in industries where production has gone overseas, community colleges have the unique ability, to provide a pipeline of qualified workers with the skills that are in demand for in-demand jobs. Two pieces of legislation, and Congress has an opportunity to clear a path for many. 2 pieces of legislation have been introduced that would seek to do that, and President Obama has laid out a plan to make 2 years of community college free for qualified students. It's an important debate we're about to have. We will have to sort out how best to pay for it, but it's the beginning of a much-needed conversation. In an economy where 65% of all jobs in 2020 will require some type of post-secondary education, few investments can have a more powerful impact on maintaining the competitive edge of our workforce. Again, remember to ask me a question or give your input at any point. Just press *3 on your telephone. One industry that's increasingly important to our future is the clean energy industry. Not only does it provide jobs, but it will help us address the environmental issues that need significant action, from climate change to renewable sources of energy to protecting our natural and historical treasures. there is much work to be done in this area. For the past few years, I've served on the House of Representatives Natural Resources Committee to help address some of these issues. In this Congress, I was elected by my colleagues to serve in a leadership role on one of its subcommittees, the Subcommittee on Federal Lands. This subcommittee is responsible for all matters related to the national park system, our U.S. forests, our public lands, and national monuments. And the 3rd District, as you know, is home to several national parks, the Minuteman National Historical Park, the Lowell National Historical Park, and a number of significant wildlife areas. This is reflective of the long-standing practice we have in the Commonwealth of preserving our natural habitats and protecting open spaces for public benefit. And I will draw from that tradition as I take on this leadership role. I'm honored to have earned the respect of my colleagues and look forward to using this opportunity to work across the aisle for the preservation and growth of all the diverse, beautiful, and historic lands spread across our great nation. Again, to ask me a question or give your input at any point, just press *3 on your telephone. These are just a few of the issues facing our nation. As the 114th Congress begins to take shape, your feedback is important for helping us and helping me as I am in Washington to focus on the priorities that matter most to Americans. This Teletown Hall is an opportunity for you to interact directly with me and provide your opinions, and I want to hear from you. I'm eager to hear your input. Please let me know what is on your mind and what your concerns are, what you'd like to see us address, and please feel free to ask me any questions you might have.
All right, excellent. And with that, we are now going to turn it over to your questions. Again, if you want to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone now. And our first question tonight is going to be from Linda in Fitchburg. Linda, you're on the line with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for your comments, Representative Tsongas, very helpful.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. I'm glad that you were talking about clean energy and our need to move away from fossil fuels. And up here, some of us in Fitchburg and southern New Hampshire and all over northern Massachusetts are concerned about the Kinder Morgan pipeline plans, and they seem to be pushing forward on that no matter what the towns say. There's supposed to be something going on here in Fitchburg and Townsend and Lunenburg, and I just wondered how you felt about that and how we can stop it.
Well, I've heard from it's a good question, and I've heard from so many deeply concerned about the proposed pipeline. In fact, I've heard from hundreds of 3rd District residents expressing their concerns with the proposed project. I think Kinder Morgan has responded to the concerns of communities and natural resource organizations and reduced the impact of the pipeline on public and private conservation land, and that's a direct result of all the actions that have been taken place by citizens like you in the impacted communities. So this is a step in a positive direction. But there are still a number of remaining concerns, including the proposed route passing through some historic local farmland, some parks, wildlife management areas, wetlands, near schools, and across drinking water supplies. And as I said, we do have a long-standing history in the Commonwealth of preserving natural habitats and protecting open spaces for the public benefit. And the proposed route really does have the potential to greatly disrupt that commitment. So as for these reasons, I've written to both the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that's FERC, and to Kinder Morgan, expressing my opposition to the proposed route. I have requested that FERC make sure that the public process is open and robust so that everybody concerned and all the concerns are appropriately studied, that they undertake a comprehensive environmental impact statement, and that they hold multiple hearings in the 3rd District. And FERC responded to my letter stating that they will conduct a full and comprehensive impact statement and are committed to fully engaging the public. And I think that some of the proposed hearings are reflective of that. Congressman McGovern and I also worked together to ask that Kinder Morgan delay some of their open houses so that our impacted constituents could have more time to review the proposed route before those meetings begin. So I've heard loud and clear from my constituents about their concerns and have worked diligently with the communities and with individuals to bring those concerns to FERC's attention and to Kinder Morgan's attention. But we do need a long-term plan in order to lower the energy prices and maintain the reliability of our energy supply. As we know, many residents and businesses are having trouble absorbing the increasing cost of electricity in place for the winter months of 2014 to 2015. So increasing access to reliable sources of natural gas can help address some of New England's energy challenges, including lowering the energy prices. But it also does not have to be at the expense of a continued investment in renewable energies conservation efforts. They too play a very important role. But for the near term, the renewable energy supply is not sufficient to meet all of our electricity needs. But in the instance of any proposed route, and certainly in this one, I commend everybody who's taken an interest because it has made a real difference.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Linda, for your question. And we're going to move on to David in Haverhill. David, you're on the line with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Honorable Congressman Tsongas.
Yes, David, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
My question is, with all your knowledge and all your insight within the government of the United States, is there any chance they're going to get rid of Daesh and ISA from slaughtering the priests, the deacons, the children, and demolishing all the churches?
Well, thank you for that question. It's something we're all greatly concerned with because there's no denying that ISIS or ISIL, it's called by varying terms, is a lethal organization with murderous intent. And so I appreciate the president who recently came forward with a proposal to ask Congress to authorize the use of force against the terrorist group known as ISIL or ISIS. As I have long called for a robust debate in Congress regarding what is our administration's overarching strategy, and the president's introduction of the authorization for the use of military force creates an opportunity to do that. But there are many very serious questions around that need very clear answers. So I look forward to closely examining the finer details of his proposed AUMF. As I have had the opportunity, I did vote against the president's request to equip and train certain Syrian groups, moderate Syrian groups, in the fight against ISIL. It was before we had had the opportunity to debate the use of military force yet again in Iraq, and for the first time in Syria. I thought it was a backdoor vote that had the potential to lead to an expanded and open-ended commitment. And I do oppose further military actions in Iraq and Syria without congressional authorization. But there are many questions we still have to consider. What it's going to cost us. In the end, what kind of commitment are American service members going to be asked? We've heard the president's strong statement that he would not commit combat troops, and yet the door has been left open for special operations. The timetable he has injected is a 3-year timetable through this authorization. 2 years would be during his administration, 1 year into the next administration. While he has a strong commitment to not using combat troops, there is no guarantee that the next president would have a similar commitment. We're beginning to see regional partners take a much more active role. We've seen Jordan really step up as a result of the horrific killing of one of their flyers. We've seen other countries as well, and I take heart from that because in the end, we cannot do this without the strong and robust support of regional partners. They're the ones that have so much at stake. They need to be committed to taking a role. But none of this will be any long-term success absent a political solution. If we look at all that we invested in Iraq, it was the failure of the political institutions that led to the current instability and created the opportunity for ISIS to become the threat that it has. So I'm ever mindful of the fact that military action alone is not going to solve this very real challenge that we face, and that it has to be a multifaceted effort. But we will be debating the president's strategy, asking the hard questions, and as we move forward, coming to some conclusion as to what the best way forward is. There's nothing simple about how we deal with this. As the President has said, this could take many, many years, but I am skeptical of a policy that depends primarily on a military response that doesn't fully take into account all the other ways in which we have to take action as well.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that question. And again, if you want to ask a question at any point, just press *3 on your phone. And now we're going to move on to Sylvia in Lowell. Sylvia, you're on the phone with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hi. My question is, everyone talks about the middle class and improving things for the middle class, but what about the lower class, the working class? What can be done to improve their lives?
Well, I think a whole host of things, and many of the proposals that have been put forth for the middle class actually have great merit, no matter how you define yourself. So, if you think of the debate we're having on the minimum wage, that is an issue that disproportionately impacts women because the vast majority of minimum wage workers are women, and so by improving the minimum wage, you help everybody from those that have the least skilled among the workforce to those who have a higher order of skills. We have talked about equal pay for equal work. Again, very important to anybody, any family, because women working need to receive the same pay that their male counterparts receive for the same work. Again, this is something that impacts the middle class, but obviously impacts everyone at every level of society. I strongly believe that when women succeed, America succeeds. And again, access to affordable child care is so important so that any one of us seeking to work can make our way into the workplace without knowing that too much of our pay is being directed to very important support for our kids and how they're taken care of in our absence. And again, I think our commitment to community colleges and understanding that they provide access to so many who otherwise would not have access to a college education, but they also provide certificate training so that you come out of it fully prepared for a particular kind of job. And again, at the federal level, how we help pay for community colleges, for higher education, I should say. The federal government has a limited role to play in education, but one of the things that we do is make available loans and grants that are available to those seeking higher education, and those opportunities are based on income. So again, it was something that benefits the working class as well as some of those in the middle class. So I think when we talk about many of these things, they really they're applicable across the board.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that question. And again, if you would like to ask a question, press *3 at any point during the call. And now we are going to move on to John from Lowell. John, you're on the phone with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Hi, Congresswoman. Thank you very much for taking my question.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good. My name is John, obviously. I'm a disabled veteran living in Lowell, Massachusetts, but my disability didn't come from my time in the service. I had a terrible accident, and I have found myself, and I appreciate Sylvia's call before, because I am now in a low-income housing, and it's time our government opens their eyes and looks around and sees what's going on with low-income housing. The people that are using the system and abusing the system is unbelievable. And the apathy and the lack of any kind of support from the rental agency here or mass housing in HUD is even worse. And I want to know what can be done. We have people living in this place who work, who do not report their income, who aren't on the lease, aren't supposed to be here, and we have gangs suddenly coming in and out of a nice complex, and my wonderful home is now a dangerous place to live, and I can't get anyone to listen to me.
Well, thank you so much for calling and participating in tonight's Teletown Hall. You raised an issue that you're not alone in. I've heard this concern not in this particular situation, but in other not dissimilar instances about the fraud and abuse that takes place, and that's something that we certainly do have to take very, very seriously. But on another front, you said you're disabled but not due to your service. But if there's anything that we can ever help you with, please feel free to call my office. One of I think the real opportunities for a member of Congress is we have staff dedicated to constituent services. We have one gentleman whose primary, if not sole responsibility, is to help veterans access the benefits that they have so justly earned. So if we can help you in that regard at all, we also have others who are dedicated to working with the Social Security Administration, to working with Medicare, to help resolve issues that may arise for those who depend upon these sources of income and this access to health care. So we're very happy to be a resource to you. But thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm sorry to hear this, and we will look into it. Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Our next question is going to be from Kathleen in Fitchburg. Kathleen, you're on the line with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Good evening.
Good evening, Kathleen.
I have many concerns, but two of my concerns are how to make people understand that the pipeline is a really bad idea. And for the environment, and I don't understand what big profit our country is going to get out of it, because it's going to be sold. It's Canadian oil, correct?
Yes. Well, yes.
So
I'm not sure if you're aware the president vetoed the bill today.
He did, but
he did veto the bill today. Given the risks associated with the project, I actually have voted against approval of the Keystone Pipeline, given the things that you're talking about, the risks associated with it, the ongoing evaluation and reviews that are being conducted. It's particularly important given that it is Canadian oil, which is what involves the State Department because it crossed national boundaries. And the particular legislation that was proposed actually limited the remedies against the pipeline company in the event of a spill.
Will they keep trying to pass it though? I mean, even though he vetoed it.
There will have to be an override in both the Senate and the House, and it will require 2/3 vote of each body. And I do not expect that that vote can be achieved. So, for the moment, I think the Keystone Pipeline bill is dead, and it will now be left to the president, which is where it belongs, to review the project and to make a decision.
All right, excellent. I think at this point we have a poll question. Congresswoman, would you like to ask that poll question?
Yes. The poll question is, do you think Congress should pass a clean bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, and we will report the findings, how you all vote sometime further into the Teletown Hall.
All right, excellent. And we will move along now. Our next caller is Marjorie from Marlborough. Marjorie, you're on the line now with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Hi, good evening, Congresswoman.
Good evening.
I'm quite pleased with a lot that you have had to say so far with regard to things such as partisan theatrics and your interest in gaining more manufacturing jobs for Massachusetts, and I think this is a crucial consideration. But I was particularly calling about my concern for the power of multinational corporations, and that there has been a movement to try to repeal Citizens United. Are you involved in that at all?
Oh, I'm very much supportive of it. I've introduced legislation that would, at the very least, it wouldn't repeal Citizens United because that is going to take probably an amendment to the Constitution, which could be very lengthy. But I introduced legislation that it said at least those who were funding advertising and making investments, at least you had to disclose the source, so that when you saw a particular ad with a strong point of view, you could trace it to the particular donor and see the influence and why they might be spending money in a particular way. I have supported a piece of legislation called the Government by the People Act, which again seeks to reduce the influence of big money, corporate money, by establishing new programs to encourage small donor contributions. I know personally I'm the beneficiary of many, many small contributions that I appreciate so much. But the reality is that money is playing an ever larger role in our campaigns. I serve with a member of Congress who he's just starting his third year. He came in 2 years ago. His election was a tough one. His reelection was a tough one, and as a member of Congress in one congressional district, $40 million was spent in that campaign. We can't sustain it. It perverts what democracy is all about, and so we're going to have to just continue to work on this to undo the impact of Citizen United.
All right, excellent. And again, if you want to ask a question, press star 3 on your phone at any point tonight during the call. And right now we're going to go to Joe in Lowell. Joe, you're on the phone with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question was, thank you very much. My question was, what can you do or do you plan to do to help the president finally close the prison at Guantanamo that he had promised or that had talked about for the past 6 years?
It's been too long coming. I actually made my first trip to Guantanamo in, I think it was October. Had not had a chance to visit it, and went down there as part of a bipartisan delegation so that I would have a better sense of it. So I've been a strong supporter of closing Guantanamo. I've had, as I'm a member of the House Armed Services Committee, every year we do what is called the markup of the National Defense Authorization Act. And it's the bill that oversees all the funding for our military actions, and particularly focused on how we best protect and train our service members. But we always have an opportunity to consider an amendment to close Guantanamo. Given that my view is the minority view, that amendment never passes. It hasn't passed to date, so it's just something we have to continue to stay on. But ever more of the detainees, those that are deemed to be appropriate, are being transferred to countries that are willing to accept them, which I think, and these are the detainees that pose virtually no threat and were deemed long ago appropriate for transfer. So slowly but surely, despite the fact that my colleagues across the aisle do not support closing Guantanamo, we continue to work at least minimizing and narrowing down the numbers of those who are held there.
All right. Excellent. Our next question is going to be from Sandy in Marlboro. Sandy, you're on the phone with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Sandy. Good.
I had the privilege years ago to work with your husband, so I'm very impressed with both of you.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for that.
I really appreciate the stands that you're taking on so many critical subjects that are going on right now. But I have been, in general, very much upset about the fact that we no longer even hear the two words gun control. And I understand that the NRA really has a lasso around everyone's neck, and they really are controlling it. But I believe that there are things that locally can be done. For example, I know there's a law out there that says you cannot purchase more than X amount of liquor unless you have a commercial facility for it to be delivered to. With guns, they can be delivered to your house, regardless of how many there are. And that seems like something that would be so simple to control, because a lot of these people don't have the funding to create a commercial facility. And it would eliminate a lot of people having the opportunity to move a lot of guns. And I'm sure there are probably all kinds of other things that could be controlled without having a major federal gun control law out there.
Well, you raise an interesting point, and we in Massachusetts, are home to some of the most serious gun control laws in the country. I hear about that all the time, but I also know that the 3rd District, because it basically it starts in Haverhill in the east and goes to Gardner in the west and runs along the New Hampshire border, we also share a border with a state that has much less stringent gun control laws. So as a result, especially for those communities that border New Hampshire, many of the communities of the Merrimack Valley, and I most recently heard this again from one of our police chiefs. So despite the fact that we as a Commonwealth have made a real investment in gun control, we are really impacted and hampered by the flow of guns from New Hampshire across the border and into our communities. So there is much that we can do at the local level, the state level, and I think Massachusetts has been in the forefront, and that might be something that legislators in Massachusetts might want to consider. But the reality is, I think we need to have gun control laws that are federal in nature, because then it deals with the border issues, so that what we're against or think is inappropriate in Massachusetts also applies to New Hampshire or any other state in our region. So, for example, the accessibility of high-capacity weapons in our country is something that I think is very troubling, and I think reform on that is much overdue. So it's something we have to continue to talk about. We haven't had an opportunity, as I've been in Congress once the Democrats lost the majority, to vote on any meaningful gun control legislation, and I think it's a tragedy, really.
All right, very good. And again, if you want to ask a question at any point tonight during the call, just please press *3 on your phone, and you'll be connected. And right now we're moving on to a question from Gloria from Haverhill. Gloria, you're on the phone with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Hello, Miss Congresswoman Tsongas. This is Gloria calling. And
hi, Gloria.
Hi. And at this point, I'm just going to go to health care, because I'm listening to everything else and I'm saying, oh, well, I don't have an answer for ISIS, because I don't think my religion would let me say what I think about ISIS, and that was supposed to be a joke, but it's not a joke. Anyway, and then Made in USA is really good, and I'll get back to the health care. I think that community colleges should be right after senior year in high school. I think community college should be high school. I think it might end up that way, because kids really everybody needs a lot more in terms of education. And I think community college is just it's the next year. And everybody should be able to have that into their programs. And so I guess the state would have to fund that. So I don't want to get into that right now. The other thing is about health care, though. Including everything else that I just talked about and what you're talking about, I think everybody needs a good health care program. And I don't like seeing it always trying to be put down and taken off the books or, whatever else is happening. And that should not be happening at all. And it should be just, I don't know if I should say it, I don't know if people can say Obamacare is for everybody. And that's the way it should be. And I guess the question is, how can they keep talking about just...
Well, I think we lost you, but I think maybe your question was, why is it that the effort is so much on repealing it? And I have to say that, the Accountable Care Act, or the Affordable Care Act, was signed into law about 5 years ago. The United States Supreme Court has upheld it. And then the voters reelected Barack Obama, who made it his signature piece of legislation. And, as you say, it was designed to expand the availability of health care coverage to the millions of Americans who had no coverage. Actually, health care costs, especially when hit with a particularly troubling illness, was the leading cause of bankruptcy. So the health care law was designed to make a difference in the lives of millions of Americans by expanding access to health care. but in so doing also to take common sense steps to rein in the cost of health care, because the spiraling costs are not going to be affordable to any of us if we don't begin to address it. So as a result, across this country, millions of Americans have signed up for health care options that are available either through the federal marketplace or the state marketplace, and they're seeing the benefits of that law. Massachusetts should take some pride in this. This was an approach that we authored and implemented and that we looked to as we were doing the Affordable Care Act. So now you have about 11.4 million people nationwide who have health insurance plan that didn't have it before. Millions of young people are now on their parents' plans through the age of 26, thanks again to the Affordable Care Act. 17 million plus children with pre-existing conditions can now no longer be denied health insurance coverage, and in fact, that's true of anybody seeking health coverage. Is that people used to be terrified that if they developed a health condition, that they could not leave their job where they did get health care for fear that they would no longer have access to health insurance. So it has put in place some and it eliminated something called gender rating, where women can no longer be charged more than men for virtually the same coverage. So it put in place so many important reforms while expanding coverage to millions of Americans and guaranteeing to all of us that should we need it, we will have access to affordable health insurance. But I've taken more than 50 votes to repeal or against repealing the Affordable Care Act, and have yet to see any significant proposal that could absolutely provide the same kind of coverage, rein in the cost of the rising cost of care, and guarantee to Americans that they would always have access to health insurance. What I think is that Americans want the law to work. Are there tweaks that we could make to it? Absolutely, but we have never had the opportunity to do that in any meaningful way.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that question. And Congresswoman, I believe you have the results of our poll question.
Yes, the question was, do you think Congress should pass a clean bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security? 77% said yes, 23% said no. The Department of Homeland Security will run out of funding by the end of this week. If we don't find a way forward, I'm strongly supportive of a clean bill authorizing funding for the Department of Homeland Security. I hope that I have the opportunity to vote on it. As it's been currently proposed, it is tied to an effort to undo the President's executive actions in matters of immigration. I think immigration reform is an important debate we need to have. There was a bipartisan bill that passed out of the Senate last year. We never had an opportunity to vote on it. It's a worthy debate, one we need to have, but it has to be disentangled and separated from funding the Department of Homeland Security, which is so important to how we keep this country and all our people safe.
Excellent. And again, if you want to ask a question, please press *3 on your phone. And moving right along, we're going to go to Paul in Haverhill. Paul, you're on the line with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Good evening,
Hi, Paul.
Congresswoman. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Earlier you had talked about the medical companies that are abound in our area. I was wondering how you felt on the medical device tax, because I see that, Boston Scientific, for instance, they've moved their headquarters over to Ireland, where they have virtually no tax. And, I think that that's something that there is bipartisan support for, possibly repealing that tax that is, a cornerstone of the Affordable Care Act. And also, if you don't mind, with regards to the 2 free years of college, I have 2 daughters that, one's a senior now in college and the other one's a junior. What about kids like that now that have already racked up some serious debt and they're already halfway through it? Is there Is there going to be any game plan to possibly help them out?
Well, you raised some great questions. I strongly support Senator Warren. For those who've already committed to college and made tremendous investments and had to borrow huge sums in order to cover the cost, I support Senator Warren's proposal that would allow for as interest rates drop, would allow for those who've incurred student loan debt to refinance them, to take advantage of lowering interest rates. We're allowed to do that with our mortgages, and I think given the kind of investment college now represents in terms of the financial burden, it's probably the second most important investment we make in our lives. That should also be the case for those who've incurred those debts and could take advantage of those lowering interest rates. The reality is, as we debate the accessibility of community colleges, that's a debate that's just beginning, and it's one that will probably take a number of years before we resolve. But I appreciate the President putting it on the table, because as I see everywhere I go, the many different companies that I go to that are highly innovative, invest in research and development or in cutting-edge technologies that create the platform for growth. Education is very, very important, whether it be at the community college level or a four-year institution or even an advanced degree. But we also should not ignore the role of technical schools, because much of the skill set that is needed with advanced manufacturing can be achieved through a vocational technical school. And I just had a conversation with a gentleman who recruits young people to make their way into the medical device industry, because there is a real opportunity there. If you come in at an entry level without the skill set that is needed, you have a real opportunity to rise up and earn a living that can really support a family. So there are many ways in which we need to think about education. Community college is just one of them. How we address the affordability of college in general, and also what the role is, for example, of our vocational technical schools. In terms of the medical device tax itself, when that tax was originally proposed, I worked with many others to reduce its impact. It was a proposal that came out of the Senate. It made its way into the final bill because I was concerned that it would harm smaller device manufacturers. If you think of you're talking about the larger manufacturers who are being driven offshore because they now have to absorb this tax. The reality is they are also going to absorb a lot more paying customers as a result of the millions of Americans that will now have access to health care. And so the thinking behind the medical tax in general was, if you're going to benefit in such an immediate and real way, that these larger companies should be part of helping to pay for implementing the Affordable Care Act. You raise a slightly different issue, which is as much about the medical device tax as it is about our tax code in general, because these medical device companies are not the only ones who are offshoring because of the disincentives in the tax code. And I think we need to look more holistically at all of those disincentives, so that there are too many companies who do very well in this country, serving this country, but who pay and take advantage of this country by being here, but who pay no taxes at all. So that is an issue we have to address. But in terms of the medical device tax, I would support one that eliminated it altogether if there was a way to pay for the lost revenue. And the proposals that we've seen on the floor of the House have really had means to pay for it that essentially undermined the Affordable Care Act. And I strongly support the Affordable Care Act. So if we were to come up with a way forward that didn't undermine that piece of legislation, I could support it. But I am also open to legislation that recognizes the difference between the larger companies that are going to reap great benefit from these millions of new patients who now will be able to take advantage of the devices that they have developed, versus the small startup company, because this is a tax on revenue. It is not a tax on profitability. And so many of those smaller companies, they may be making modest amounts of money, but they're not yet profitable. And essentially it does drive them out of business. But we've seen I've yet to see a piece of legislation that I could strongly support that did away with the medical device tax or narrowly tailored it without undermining the Affordable Care Act at the same time.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that question. Congresswoman, I believe we have another poll question.
This next poll question is, and I'll read through it twice. What do you think is the most important issue facing Congress in the coming months? And there are going to be 5 choices. 1 is for job creation. 2 is for fixing the immigration system. 3 is for addressing climate change. 4 is for responding to concerning international situations like those in Syria, Iraq, and the Ukraine. And press 5 for others. So 1 for job creation, 2 for fixing the immigration system, 3 for addressing climate change, 4 for responding to concerning international situations like those in Syria, Iraq, and the Ukraine, and press 5 for other.
Excellent. And we're going to move right along to our next question is going to be from Jean in Lowell. Jean, you're on the line with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Hi, Congresswoman Tsongas. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for hanging in there.
Okay. I had a question about federal funding for infrastructure in Massachusetts, particularly in light of the possibility of the Olympics coming to Boston. And I live in Lowell, and I'm thinking locally, I guess, when I think about the Rock Bridge and other bridges in the area that may need some upgrading. Is there federal funding for something like that available?
There at the moment, the funding would come through something called the Highway Trust Fund, and that fund is becoming ever more sparse. And as a result, we have to look at a way for refunding it. One of the ways in which it has been funded, and I know this in general, but Senator Markey was just in Lowell last week, and he talked about it. So one of the pieces of legislation that I was very proud to support was legislation that challenged the car manufacturers to increase their miles per gallon in any newly manufactured car. But as a result of that and the higher miles per gallon that we're getting out of our car, we're paying less into the trust fund because we're paying less taxes, less of the gas tax. So the trust fund is slowly but surely being depleted. But there is a bipartisan recognition of the need to invest in our infrastructure. I mean, we know that it's critical to our economic competitiveness, and the trust fund is a way in which we provide federal support for transportation projects on the state level in order to maintain, a reliable transportation infrastructure. And I think we've seen with this recent, with the recent snowmageddon, that we have in Massachusetts much work to be done. You raise an interesting point with the Olympics. I think it's quite exciting that Boston has been designated. I think we're all excited to see that the Merrimack River might be where we hold the rowing races, because the river is better suited to that kind of competition. And also that the arena might also host boxing. And last week we had the committee that put together the Olympic proposal that was so well received, in which Senator Donahue played a real part as well. Our Senator Donahue played a very important part. Came to Washington to brief all the members of the delegation, and I said, I think we all see it as an opportunity to make important investments in our infrastructure. The Rourke Bridge might be one. Should we host that piece of the Olympics? But I said what I think is really important, given that much of the facilities are in Boston, that all the funding not just go into making Boston bigger and better, but that it has to be used to knit the Commonwealth together. So if you're ever on 93 trying to get into Boston for a 9 o'clock meeting, you have to be on the road sometimes by 6 in the morning. I think this is a unique opportunity to really think through a strategic long-term plan for how best to support the movement of people in the Commonwealth, support businesses, allow people to get to their workplace and home in a timely manner, and help support something like the Olympics. And I'm fearful and will work hard against proposals that put too much of it into Boston and not enough of it in the rest of the state, and particularly in the Merrimack Valley and Lowell.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Congresswoman. And I believe we have some answers to our poll questions. Congresswoman, would you like to read those?
Yes, so the question was, what is the most important issue facing Congress in the coming months? 21% said job creation. 27% said immigration, fixing the immigration system. 16% said addressing climate change. 29% responding to international situations in Syria, Iraq, and the Ukraine. And 7% said other. So thank you for this. I take it, I will keep this in mind as we're addressing the legislative issues that we obviously have to confront. Thank you so much.
All right, and I believe we have time for one more question tonight. Barbara from Marlborough, you're on the line with Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
Good evening. And I asked the question of something that's bothered me for a long while. When I try to go into a telephone conversation with major companies, there is so many buttons that I have to push on the telephone to try to find the appropriate person to speak to. And most of the time it's very unsuccessful. Then I get telephone calls from out of the country from people that hardly speak English that you can understand, and they represent major banking companies. Why can't we bring those jobs, and there are many of them overseas, back to the United States of America and employ some of the students that have graduated from college and cannot find work? That would open up.
I think I lost you the last bit of that, but I understand your question, and it's part of the larger issue of a number of things. So, number one, how do we address a tax code that too often encourages companies to outsource a number of things, whether it's their manufacturing processes or itself, whether it is a call center. I know I think everyone on this TownHall has probably experienced that in one way or the other. In fact, I was a co-sponsor of a bill in a previous Congress that would make companies that outsource their call centers overseas ineligible for federal grants or loans. And would also require a publicly available list of all employers that do relocate their call centers overseas.
Good.
So it's about call centers, specifically, but more generally about how do we support manufacturing and encouraging companies to come back to this country. And I've found that there's really a misperception that the country is no longer a manufacturing leader. In fact, I meet on companies all the time. I have met with companies who've made decisions to move their manufacturing from a foreign country back to the United States for a whole host of reasons. I met with another company that is based in Switzerland that chose to relocate in Andover because there was a better trained workforce. So we do too often experience a call center where obviously it's somebody calling from another country, and that's a specific issue. But in terms of manufacturing itself, things are beginning to change, but it also it needs to be encouraged by federal policies that don't discourage companies from staying here and do everything they can to keep companies here. So with that, I wanted to thank everyone for participating in tonight's telephone town hall meeting. This discussion was so helpful to me, as it always is when I hear directly from you about matters that really matter to you. If I didn't have a chance to get to your question this evening, there will be an opportunity to leave me a voicemail in just a minute, and we'd be happy to get back to you on your question. It's very important that if you want to get a response to your question, that you leave your name, address, phone number, and email address. You can also visit my website at www.tsongas.house.gov or follow me on Facebook and Twitter to learn more about what I'm working on, or to email me any thoughts or questions. And I do also have Congress on your corner, and I make a point of making my way to the various communities of the 3rd District. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Rep Tsongas and on Twitter at Nikki in the House. Thanks again for choosing to participate in tonight's telephone town hall meeting. I've enjoyed our discussion very much. Thank you.